you a woman in medicine feeling overwhelmed and disconnected from the personal fulfillment that you desire? You're in the right place. Join Doctors Joanne and Aaron as they rewrite the rules for women in medicine. Let's begin.
Welcome back to this episode. I am so excited that we have Dr. Samantha Wiseman. She is a family practice physician at Northwest Permanente, which is the physician arm of Kaiser Permanente. For those of you who don't know about that, it's a big multi-specialty, large HMO organization. And what I know specifically about Samantha's practice is that her population is very complex. So she works in a place that has challenging patients with socioeconomic issues, and yet they are under the same constraints as people who don't have such complex patients. And I'm so excited to share some of Samantha's story here with Joanne and with our listener. And Samantha, you and I have met a few years ago and then have been working together for about a year and a half. And I was just hoping to share some of your beautiful story with our listener and share some hope and inspiration at what is possible as a primary care physician in today's medical culture. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Aaron and Joanne. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you, Samantha. Welcome to our show. We're so excited to have you and to share some of the things that have happened in the last years. And I think it's important as women in medicine, we talk about it in this podcast, that we struggle in silence. We feel like we're the only ones going through difficult times. We get into that Lone Ranger mentality and we don't always know. So it's important, I believe, to share some of the good things and what we're learning, but then also kind of share some of the struggles that we've had. And I would love to start there with you. If you can share just that, of what were some of the struggles that you faced as a woman in medicine in the last years?
Yeah. So I started my current job that I have straight out of residency. And residency was also definitely a struggle. I think we work so hard to get to where we want to be. And then we spend all of these hours during residency. I think my residency was actually nicer than some of the other residencies that I've heard about, some of the experiences from some of my friends, but it was still super long hours. We were about, I think, 50-50 as far as male-female ratio for our residency. So family medicine tends to be pretty well split, I think, kind of that 50-50 range. I was a first-time college graduate for my family. So I came from a family that there was my aunt that was like a distant aunt, was in medicine that I had never met before. But other than that, I had no experience with being in the medical field or how to navigate the medical system, the medical school system and the medical education system. And so kind of had to learn all of that on my own. My family was very supportive, but they did not have anything really to offer as far as like examples of what they had done or things that they had gone through. And so that was, I would say, the first struggle was just trying to figure out this really complex medical education system and all the finances that come with it, and the testing and just all of that kind of stuff. And I think getting through medical school, I had a lot of really good close friends who all went into different specialties than I did. But it was good to have that community already there. I also went to a medical school down in Lebanon, Oregon, which is very close to where I grew up. So we had a like built-in support system a couple hours away, which I think is a lot different than other people may have moving far from home. But it was still 2 hours away. You have testing frequently. You have you start rotations, and you don't get to go see those support systems as much as you had previously when you were living closer to home. So that was the big like initial struggle, I would say. And then the next step is getting into residency, having those like extra long hours. The hospital, it was split between hospital and clinic, and the hospital ones were really, really difficult. It was a lot of hours in inpatient, which I was not a huge fan of. I knew I wanted to go into clinical medicine or into like clinic type medicine starting out. And so you just are working on with all of these really ill patients in the hospital and trying to get them back out into their like normal day-to-day routine. And I was very supported at my residency and felt like I was well prepped for going into my attending job. But we had a really complex patient panel during my residency as well, which I think is pretty common for residencies to have, like the more high needs patients. So it was, I would say, good prep. But once you get to where you're at for your attending job, your big girl job, it was it's a lot of responsibility that you weren't quite aware of. And so while I felt really supported at my attending, my new attending job, it was still like you're realizing you are the end all be all decision maker for the things that you're prescribing, and you don't have someone really looking over your work. And so that was really scary, but I think it was good. I had support because the clinic that I ended up going to it's a higher needs population. It's a little bit more rural. So we did not have the same ability to keep clinicians that some of the other clinics that were closer to the larger city, Portland. It was a lot harder to keep clinicians in our clinic. And so I became paneled very quickly. My panel filled and overfilled actually in less than a year. And so I was managing the inbox work of an overfull panel like 8 months out of residency. And I had to like advocate for myself and go to the leaders of the clinic and say, hey, I think I have a lot of patients. And they looked at my panel and it was 150% full. And they were like, oh no, yeah, you're really over paneled. And I was like, yeah, I thought so. It seemed like there was a lot of stuff coming in. And so they closed my panel, and we've just kind of been working on patients select themselves, right? They realize if they like you or if they don't like you, or if they feel like they can't get in to see you because you're over paneled, they'll end up going to others. But because our clinic didn't have a lot of clinicians in it, there wasn't a lot of movement because there weren't people that were open and available to take new patients. And so as women, we tend to, I think, draw more people into our panels because they're looking for somebody who really listens and spends more time with them, which is great on one hand. And I feel really privileged that people want to spend all that time with us and make sure that they're getting good medical care. And on the other hand, that means we spend more time with them in the room and more time on their chart reviewing and on their documentation. And we're just spending more time with them in general. So yeah, it's hard to set those boundaries. Yeah. So that's, I would say, some of the biggest struggles that I've had is just having an super overfull panel because people were looking for a new female physician to come to, and I was the one. So I've been at my job now for just over three years, and things are settling. A lot more to that, but I'll let you guys take back over.
And I want to reflect back because, again, our listener, and I know Erin and I, that we both coach other women in medicine, that we feel like these are not things that we're supposed to go through, and the universality of some of these struggles. So pointing out, which, by the way, congratulations, that even without it having had a role model in your family, that you said, I'm going to go for this and I'm going to figure it out. And it sounds like you had good support right? Like we have that sense of, I can get in the car, and then the struggle of, this is hard. We spend so much time during residency, and like it's good to know that they're there, because right, like we know psychologically that helps, but the missing our support, I know so many of us go through that. And then I love that oh goodness, I am the doctor now. Like I am where's the attending? Like, oh wait, it's me. And then it's a good problem to have, that people are attracted to you and they want to see, and that you're a good doctor and female, and that we do take more time. But then it's also sounds like no time to adjust. It was like, okay, here's right. Like there's this high turnover, and we're looking at you to figure it out. So, like, and then the realizing, maybe I need to have boundaries here, and the difficulty in saying no, and we are heart-centered and we served. And good for you for recognizing also, I need to advocate for myself. I need to, if we don't ask, a lot of times we have that learned helplessness in medicine, because we hear no, or this is the way it's been. We're not going to have any exceptions for you, or we've asked and it's no, no, no. So we just stop asking. And that, I know a lot of women in medicine go through that. So I'm glad that you were able to say with facts, hey, I need help here. There's a lot in that you advocated for yourself. So I just wanted to point those out, because as a young doctor, you realized a lot, and the desire to do well, and knowing what do I need in my life so that I can keep on moving forward and keep on growing. So thank you for sharing all of that with us.
Yeah. And I want to point out the advocacy for yourself as well. Joanne and I have often talked about men are better advocates for themselves. They do it more often, whether it's in salary, setting boundaries, and women often either maybe assume they're going to be told no, or they think, what's the point? Or they think, oh, they're looking after my best interest. And even if it's not intentional, what I love about what you did is, again, you dug into the numbers. You had numbers don't usually lie. And you're like, I'm 150% paneled. That's not okay. So it's hard to change things we don't measure. So there's a measurement. How full paneled are you? You took those numbers, you presented them, advocated for yourself, and you created change in your practice. And that leads me to thinking, like, sometimes we try something and it works. They close your panel. Sometimes we try things and they didn't work. So I would love for you to share some of the things that you've tried successfully, or tried and it didn't work out so well, with some of those challenges that you've shared with us.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of change, I would say, in the past 3 years. I started out with, I'm full-time, and my initial, for the first 6 months, we're just full-time physicians doing regular clinic. I really wanted to focus on integrative medicine and OMT. So I'm a DO. So I do some osteopathic manipulative therapy. And I had that on my schedule after that 6-month mark, got started on that, in addition to having some integrative medicine time to talk with patients about lifestyle, diet, exercise, supplements, that kind of stuff. And I was, because of the type of clinic that I'm at, it being a little bit further out, the patient population is a little bit older, a little bit sicker. I had the OMT, or osteopathic manipulative therapy, on my schedule, and it was not getting filled. And so when slots don't get filled for that type of appointment, the appointments got switched over to random fills. And it turned into like OMT for one session or one appointment, and then urgent care, like urgent chest pain, for another one. And it was it was a lot. And the mornings OMT never really went smoothly. And so while I really, really love doing that, I just realized it was not in the cards for me being at that clinic or at that time in my career. And so I decided to change and get rid of OMT and just do regular primary care for that time frame. I am still doing integrative medicine and I love it. It's my favorite part of my week, I would say. But I had to make changes, and there are changes that you don't necessarily want to make, but there are things that you need to make. And so the other thing that I would say, as far as like things that have changed, I made a recent change with my schedule. So I was doing Monday, Tuesday, all day seeing patients, and it was a lot of patients, and a lot of stuff came in from the weekend on inbox work. So I'm dealing with all of these patient emails and refills and results that have come in over the weekend, in addition to seeing 22 patients on Monday and 20 patients on Tuesday. And it was really overwhelming to have all of that work. And this week actually was the beginning of my new schedule. So Monday morning, I had some time to manage my inbox, not seeing patients. And then Monday afternoon, I see patients. And I moved my Monday morning patients to Friday afternoon that I had previously had off. And this past Monday was great. We'll see how this afternoon goes with my first Friday afternoon session, but I am really excited about it. And I felt like this was something that really needed to happen, because it was really challenging to have that 1-2 Monday, Tuesday punch. So yeah, I'm making changes from that standpoint and just trying to adjust what I can. And
I want to insert here, just because we've shared this story during our sessions, Samantha. Mm-hmm. And what I love about this is we talked about the schedule. Mm-hmm. You know, you were aware, oh, I can make a request, and either they can say yes or they can say no to making this change. And you didn't let that get in your way of asking. Like, I can ask. They said yes. And you did that process so quickly. And of course, you had to wait out, was it maybe 6 or 8 weeks? Because that's how far out you were scheduled. So maybe we had this discussion a couple months ago.
Yeah, it was 3 months that I had to, yeah.
And even with you moving that quickly, it was still a 3-month process waiting, but you took quick action. You didn't wait 3 months to make the request, and now it's 3 more months. And so very quickly after that conversation, you made a decision, you followed through, you got a yes, you made the adjustments, and then you had a little light at the end of your tunnel to look forward to, which was so exciting. And who knows what it's going to bring. And we talked about, well, if this doesn't work, what can you do? Right. But you took ownership of, I don't have to live with this schedule forever. Let me make some adjustments and see if I can make it better, and took action, which was exciting for me to see that. And then I'm excited to see what might come out of that.
I want to ask you a question, Samantha, going back a little bit in time when you're saying that there's changes that you know you need to make. And give us kind of like a vision of that time in your life that you said, you know what, something's got to give. What was that pivotal moment, whether of external things that were going on or internally, that you said, I need to look outside and get some support here?
Yeah, it was actually very easy to identify. It was like a specific day, and it's easy to remember because it was my anniversary. So my wedding anniversary, it was our 5th anniversary. It was our 5th anniversary. And I had a plan no, it wasn't our 5th. Sorry, it was our 7th anniversary. Doesn't matter that much, but it was a wedding anniversary. And I had taken off the Monday beforehand, and the day of was a Tuesday. And Tuesdays are typically my hardest days. So I'd taken the Monday off. We went and had a great time. And we went and did Barbenheimer. So that was the time frame. We saw Barbie and Oppenheimer at the same time, and it was great. Tuesday, I'm like, okay, I can do this. I can get off at 6 o'clock. I can get home for dinner. We can, even though I'm working on our anniversary, I can still make it home in time. And lo and behold, Tuesday does not go to plan. I am like stressing out, trying to get out of work at 6:15. I had been running behind all day, and I had like crazy complicated patients. And I got home, and I was just so upset that I had spent all of this time, and I was all of this time with patients, which, like, we go into this to care for patients, right? And that's super important to us. But when you start getting frustrated about the patients, and you start like showing signs of burnout, where you are not having the compassion that you would normally have for patients. I was noticing that I was feeling that way when I got home on that Tuesday evening. And I said, something needs to change. I don't know what it is. I think I need to reach out to Erin. And I had met Erin like a year prior. I did her charting workshop. And I had done a like one-on-one with her shortly after that and was like, I don't think I'm quite ready for this yet, but I'll keep this in my back pocket. And so when that anniversary came around, I said, I need to reach out to her because I need something needs to change. I need to figure out how to get through my days easier and enjoy my work again and be able to like enjoy the relationships that I have outside of work. And so I signed up for working one-on-one with Erin very shortly after that. I think it was August and my anniversary was in July. So, and it was scary taking that step because it's hard to put the investment into yourself because it's money to work with a coach, right? But like weighing that benefit versus the drawback, the benefit was more like significantly more to me in my mind than the drawback of not having the money in savings or putting it towards loans, which is a really hard thing for me. But I think it was really important for me to do that.
And I could feel your words. Thank you for sharing. And I could feel even to this day the pain of that time. And often it takes us seeing the suffering in someone else to recognize, wait, what I'm struggling with that I think I can just bear through. I just need to push a little harder. Now it's spilling into other areas of my life. And how beautiful that you had that awareness and the recognition of, wait, this is not just me pushing through. This is affecting my well-being and my relationships. And I love, like what you said, something needs to change. And that you reached out to Erin, and how important also Erin and I talk about all the things that we do to help others, and that it's nice to do these things, right? Like I always say, pay attention to why you sign up for things, and that your brain was like, wait a minute, I remember Erin and that workshop and how helpful even the workshop was. I wonder how much more help I would have if I did more coaching. And I love you recognizing this is an investment of time and money. And now that you've done it, you can look back and then say, I wouldn't change it because the benefits totally outweigh that investment. So like I say, pat yourself in the back for having the awareness and making such a big decision and for sharing that here with us, because we're Erin and I are very biased, but I know, like you said, it's not always that straightforward, and it makes sense that it's scary and that you still said, this, I don't need to be struggling by myself. I don't need to be suffering in silence, and I'm going to put myself first and take care of my well-being and the ripple effect of how it will affect everyone around me in my spouse, my patients, the rest of the family. And it's a beautiful thing to look back and recognize that. So thank you for saying all of that out loud.
I just want to give you credit, Samantha, because I've shared this before. You can sign up for coaching and you can spend time and money and show up weeks on end and take no action. You show up, and you not only show up for our one-on-ones, when I have a workshop, when I have a group call, when I have our planning sessions on Sundays, you show up and then you take action, you implement, and then that drives change. And to me, that's the beauty in this, is that you're owning all these choices you're making. And the one thing I remember about you is I totally remember your story telling me about that anniversary and how that was such a pivotal moment. But the other thing you shared with me is you had what you called the Sunday scaries, because when Monday came around every week, you had dread. And I think you have such a gift for your patients. And I'm just so proud of the doctor you are. It just makes me like, I am so proud of you being that person that patient needs in that moment. I feel that from the bottom of my heart. And when I heard you talking about dread and Sunday scaries. And I thought, like, that's not okay. And what I loved is that because you took action after our sessions, because you thought about what might work for me, what might not, that I stopped hearing that word dread during our sessions. I stopped hearing some of the other, maybe you can explain a little bit, like, what was your thought process? But after a while, the Sunday scaries and dread words didn't come up. And I thought, okay, there's something going on here. And so I don't know if you have any other recollection of when you made that change, like, what are some of the things I might have forgotten, or what are some of the things that stand out to you?
Yeah, I think one of the other things right around that time frame was me trying to make a decision, like, in addition to working with a coach, was I going to look at changing the type of work that I was doing, or like the clinic that I was at, or the organization that I was at? Because it's pretty common first 2-3 years out of residency, you don't typically stick with your first job. And so the other thing that had presented itself was a leadership position. And it's kind of odd to think about, like, maybe looking for a different job versus taking on leadership. And it was the decision of, like, do I lean in or do I lean out? Do I like decide that this is just not for me, or do I want to make changes to the work that I'm doing right now and the clinic that I'm in, and really help make this place a better place to work, not only for me, but for the other people that are there. And so around the same time that I started working with Erin, I took on a assistant physician in charge role. And that has made a huge difference as well, because I think being in leadership, we get to know there's more, we get more information on why things are the way that they are. And we get to say, like, well, do they have to be that way? Can we make changes to it? Can we make slight adjustments? And that was that was a huge moment of, like, getting the opportunity to step into a leadership role and figure out how can I make changes that will benefit not only me, but the people that are now under me and being supervised by me and my patients, right? Because we want everyone in the clinic to be happy working there, because if they're happier, they're going to be they're going to do a better job of taking care of their patients. They're going to, like, get more satisfaction from work. And so that was also right around that time. There was a lot of shifts going on, but stepping into the leadership role was the other aspect of it.
And you stepped in as a newer physician, like there were other people who were more senior than you. And I know that you were like, am I the right one to do this? And you just kept leaning in and leaning in and leaning in, as you said, instead of leaning out. And it's just been a beautiful process to watch as your coach and see that. One of the things we haven't talked about too much is your sense of community. And one of the areas that I believe you have so much to role model for other women in medicine is how powerful your sense of community is, and how you've continued to hang on to that throughout your medical training and into practice. Would you share some of that with our listener and see how they might be able to take some areas of wisdom from what you've cultivated for yourself?
Yeah. So I, like I said, I went to residency. I went to med school and residency, and then ended up working in or around the city that I grew up in, and went to undergrad in. So I had kind of a built-in community already with those college friends, high school friends, and I was like during medical school, tried to keep those in addition to growing the community that I had there. And then when I got to residency, I was able to reconnect with some of the friendships from high school and college, in addition to building those bonds with people that you're in residency with, where you're like, oh my God, that was a crazy day. Like, what the heck just happened? So you're building those relationships. And I still talk with a couple of the people from residency. And that was really important to me. And then when I started my attending job, I was trying to like rebuild this community because you have more time than you do during residency, and have met new people, both inside and outside of work. With the leadership role that I've taken on, I have really like started building this community of other leaders and other people in the organization who want to see the organization succeed, and leaning heavily on the people in my clinic, the other leaders, on like, how do you do this thing? How do you like deal with a complicated patient? Or how do you deal with this person that you are overseeing and you just don't know how to have this hard conversation, or you don't know how to have this discussion that you need to have with them? And I think it's really nice to have like extra people that I'm building this like larger group, and I feel really supported by them. And I feel like I can reach out to multiple different people if I need to, in addition to working with Erin. And now we've been doing the group calls, and it's nice to have even more people in my group or my community that if I had a question or a concern or something, I feel like I could reach out to them if I needed to.
That is so neat. Something you're like it in my older self, like I joke, like I see you as this young doctor, but such a role model already. I hope that you can hear it in the things that you're sharing with us, how much you've done and how much you've moved forward, and the example that you are, right? Like we're talking about role modeling and how much of that you are already. So I hope you can see that. And in thinking about that, what advice would you give other women in medicine in some of the things that we're talking about?
I would say don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. If something is not working, look at different alternatives, different options. You can crowdsource with other people that you have around you, but really just looking at all the different options that are out there. And if it's something that seems totally off the wall, it doesn't hurt to ask.
I love that. And Samantha, one of the questions we often ask our guests on this show is, our title is Create Meaning in Medicine, Rewriting the Rules for Women Physicians. And I wonder, in your own life, what rules have you rewritten?
I am allowing myself to put myself first in situations, because you can't take care of other people if you are not taking care of yourself first. And so rewriting that rule of we always have to put others first. No, we don't. And we probably shouldn't, because we have to have those reserves available to care for others. So
that is so neat. I think that we need that tattooed. Thank you so much. Definitely a quote to keep for us, and for those of you who listen, you guys know that we love frameworks and like formulas. And I've just created a formula here just based on the nuggets that Samantha has given us. So first of all, to recognize that we're not struggling alone. We share a lot of the same challenges. The importance of advocacy and setting boundaries. I like this of trying different things and pivot. Sometimes we get stuck of like, no, I was placed in this position. I have to stay just because, and recognizing not everything is for me, and having the courage to make those decisions. And then, something that Erin also reframed for us, how you realized that there needed to be a change. You made the decision, took action, and that's been what's been driving the change that I'm seeing. It's so lovely just to hear your story here, and that you're sharing with our audience, and how it can be scary, but we can raise our hands to ask for help, whether that's advocating at work or, like you shared here, making the big decision of hiring a coach, and how neat that it's our very own Dr. Erin Hurley. I love it. I feel proud of her. Like I'm here, like, yay.
And there's a whole other side of this because Samantha is married and she's she is a role model in how to overcome those divorce statistics. So maybe there's a part 2 down the road about that, because I think that that's another powerful story that we haven't talked about that is equally as important as your success at work and in leadership.
Yes, we always talk about, our overall well-being. A lot of times when we think of success in medicine, we just think of productivity and patient seeing and leadership and publications. And we're here sending the message that no, we need to pause, zoom out, and think of success as our own sense of fulfillment and harmony and feeling different areas of our lives. And it gives me hope to hear you saying it doesn't need to be that way, and that as a leader, that's the message that you're sharing, and kind of this last quote that you gave us of don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. And that's so neat. Samantha, is there something that we didn't ask you that you want our listener to know?
Don't lose your female friendships. I know Erin and I have talked about that a lot, and it's really important to have those. So
non-negotiable, right? That's what I learned. Those are non-negotiable. That is a new norm in my vocabulary.
Yes. And Erin and I talk about that and how lovely it is, and how we find friendships at any moment in our lives. And we have this duo, or Erin knows I love her, and that I get to share her important people too in meeting you, Samantha, and you sharing with our audience. So thank you so much. I have notes and notes. Thank you. I hope that this was as helpful for our listener and all the things that we're doing. And Erin and I are in a big mission here. We are building community, and we are also building resources. So please, if you're liking what we're talking about here, don't hesitate to visit our website, createmeaninginmedicine.com. We're putting some resources there. We're building the community, and stay tuned for our next episode.
Do you want exclusive resources and the opportunity to connect with us? Then visit createmeaninginmedicine.com now, where you'll dive deeper into how you can create meaning in medicine. And if you're serious about optimizing your results, take 2 quick steps now. Connect with us on the website and tune in to the next episode.